1 hour of Stoic wisdom to calm your mind before sleep. How many nights have you spent tossing and turning, your mind racing with worries about tomorrow, regrets about yesterday, and anxieties that seem to multiply in the darkness? In this modern world of constant notifications, endless to-do lists, and perpetual stimulation, the simple act of falling asleep has become anything but simple for millions of people. What if the ancient Stoics, philosophers who lived nearly 2,000 years ago, held the key to quieting your mind and finding that elusive peace that leads to restorative sleep? These wise men and women didn't have smartphones or deadline pressures, but they understood something fundamental about human nature. Our minds can be our greatest allies, or our most persistent tormentors. Tonight, I'll share with you 9 powerful Stoic practices that can transform your evening hours from a battleground of restless thoughts into a sanctuary of calm reflection and peaceful surrender to sleep. These aren't complicated techniques requiring special equipment or years of practice. They're simple wisdom principles that have stood the test of time precisely because they work with our human nature rather than against it. As you listen, allow yourself to gradually disconnect from the day's demands. Let these ancient insights gently guide you toward that quiet harbor of mind where sleep awaits. Whether you're listening while preparing for bed or already lying down with eyes closed, these Stoic principles will help you release the mental tension that keeps quality sleep at bay. Let's begin our journey through 9 chapters of Stoic wisdom, specifically chosen to calm your mind and prepare you for the deep, rejuvenating sleep your body and spirit need. Chapter 1. Accepting what you cannot control. The first principle of Stoic wisdom that can help calm your mind before sleep is the practice of accepting what you cannot control. As Epictetus, a former slave who became one of Stoicism's greatest teachers, wisely observed, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." How much of your evening anxiety stems from replaying situations that are now beyond your influence? That meeting that didn't go as planned, the comment you wish you hadn't made, or the task you didn't complete. All of these belong to the past now, a realm where your control has expired. Similarly, how much of your restlessness comes from attempting to control tomorrow's uncertainties? The weather for your outdoor plans, how others will respond to your ideas, or circumstances that haven't yet materialized. These belong to the future, where your control is merely an illusion. The Stoics taught a simple but profound truth. Peace begins when we clearly distinguish between what we can and cannot control. Right now, as you prepare for sleep, consider this question. What aspects of my life am I trying to control that are actually beyond my power? Perhaps you're worrying about a loved one's choices, the economy's fluctuations, or a colleague's attitude. The Stoics would gently remind you that these concerns, while understandable, are not yours to control. By mentally releasing your grip on these external matters, you create space for tranquility to enter. Consider the story of Agrippinus, a Stoic philosopher who was exiled by Emperor Nero. When informed of his banishment, he reportedly replied, "Very well, we shall have lunch at Aricia instead," referring to the first stop on the road out of Rome. Rather than lamenting his fate or raging against the emperor, things beyond his control, He simply adjusted his plans and maintained his equanimity. This response exemplifies the Stoic ability to accept external circumstances while maintaining internal peace. This distinction between what we can and cannot control is not merely philosophical. It has profound implications for our nervous system. When we struggle against unchangeable circumstances, our bodies remain in a state of tension, with stress hormones circulating and muscles tightened. This physiological state is antithetical to sleep. By accepting what we cannot change, we signal to our bodies that it's safe to relax, that the vigilance of wakefulness is no longer needed. Imagine yourself standing by a river. The water represents all the events, circumstances, and other people's actions flowing through your life. You can't stop the river or change its course through sheer will. But you do have complete authority over how you respond to the river, whether you fight against the current, exhausting yourself, or whether you acknowledge its power and adapt accordingly. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who wrote his meditations often at night before sleep, reminded himself, "You always own the option of having no opinion. There is never any need to get worked up about things you can't control." This practice of withholding judgment about external events, especially before sleep, can prevent the mind from becoming agitated by circumstances beyond our influence. As you lie in bed tonight, practice this mental exercise. Identify one situation causing you anxiety and ask yourself, is this within my control? If not, visualize yourself opening your hands and releasing it, watching it float away like a leaf on that river. Notice how your body responds as you relinquish the need to control what cannot be controlled. For many of us, the most challenging application of this principle involves other people. We lie awake, worrying about a child's decisions, a partner's habits, a friend's well-being, or a colleague's opinion of us. The Stoics would remind us that while we can offer guidance, support, and love to others, ultimately their choices and feelings remain outside our control. Epictetus put it bluntly, "Other people's views and troubles can be contagious. Don't sabotage yourself by unwittingly adopting negative, unproductive attitudes through your associations with others." This doesn't mean becoming indifferent to others, but rather recognizing the boundaries of your influence. You can express your care and concern, offer help when appropriate, but then you must release the outcome. This release is not abandonment, but respect, both for others' autonomy and for your own peace of mind. The practice of accepting what you cannot control extends even to your own body as you prepare for sleep. Many insomniacs make their condition worse by trying to force sleep, an effort that paradoxically creates tension and alertness. The Stoics would advise us to recognize that while we can create favorable conditions for sleep, the actual falling asleep is not directly under our control. By releasing the demand that sleep come immediately or in a particular way, we often remove the very obstacle preventing it. Remember Marcus Aurelius's words, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In this moment, as sleep approaches, your greatest power lies in choosing which thoughts deserve your attention and which should be gently released. By focusing on what is truly within your control, your judgments, your values, your responses, you reclaim the tranquility that is your natural state. Chapter 2. Practicing Negative Visualization. Our second Stoic practice for calming the mind before sleep is what the ancient Greeks called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, or what modern Stoic scholars call negative visualization. This might initially sound counterintuitive. Why would visualizing negative scenarios help calm your mind? The answer reveals the profound psychological insight of the Stoics. Seneca, a Stoic philosopher and statesman, advised, "He who fears he shall suffer already suffers what he fears." Much of our nighttime anxiety stems not from actual problems, but from the vague, undefined fears of what might go wrong. These shadowy concerns often loom larger in the darkness, their undefined nature making them seem more threatening than they truly are. Negative visualization brings these fears into the light, examining them directly, rather than allowing them to lurk in the shadows of your mind. By consciously considering what could go wrong, you accomplish two powerful things. You prepare yourself mentally for potential challenges, and you often realize that even the worst-case scenario is something you could handle. The Stoics regularly practice this mental exercise. Seneca wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" By voluntarily experiencing discomfort, the Stoics inoculated themselves against the fear of future hardships. While lying in bed preparing for sleep is not the time to wear rough clothing or eat meager food, it is an excellent opportunity to mentally rehearse potential challenges. This practice doesn't increase anxiety. Quite the opposite. By bringing vague fears into focus, you often discover they lose their power to disturb you. As you prepare for sleep tonight, choose one concern about tomorrow that's occupying your thoughts. Perhaps it's an important presentation, a difficult conversation, or a decision you need to make. Now, take a moment to visualize what might happen if things don't go as planned. What's the worst realistic outcome? Not catastrophic fantasies, but genuine possibilities. If your presentation doesn't go well, what actually happens? Perhaps some momentary embarrassment. Maybe some feedback to improve, but rarely the career-ending disaster your anxious mind might suggest. Consider the story of Cato the Younger, who would practice negative visualization before journeys. He would imagine losing his luggage, encountering bad weather, or facing other travel difficulties. By mentally preparing for these possibilities, he could enjoy his actual journey without anxiety, knowing he had already considered and accepted potential setbacks. Now, ask yourself, could I survive this outcome? Have I weathered similar situations before? Almost always. The answer is yes. This realization that even the worst plausible scenario is manageable often deflates the power of vague anxiety. This practice works because our minds don't distinguish well between imagined and real threats. By mentally rehearsing difficulties and our responses to them, we create neural pathways that serve us when real challenges arise. The brain registers, "I've encountered this before and survived," even if the encounter was only in imagination. Modern psychology confirms the wisdom of this ancient practice. Cognitive behavioral therapists use similar techniques, helping patients confront feared scenarios in imagination to reduce their anxiety in real life. What the Stoics intuited through philosophy, science has validated through research. But negative visualization offers another gift: gratitude. By regularly contemplating the absence of the good things in your life, you develop a deeper appreciation for having them now. As you lie in bed, briefly imagine not having your health, your home, or the loved ones who enrich your life. This practice doesn't cultivate morbid thinking, but rather a profound thankfulness that can replace anxiety with contentment. Marcus Aurelius practiced this regularly, writing, "Do not indulge in dreams of having what you have not, but reckon up the chief of the blessings you do possess, and then thankfully remember how you would crave for them if they were not yours." This shift in perspective, from focusing on what's missing to appreciating what's present, can transform your mental state as you prepare for sleep. The practice works on a neurochemical level too. Gratitude stimulates the production of dopamine and serotonin, neurotransmitters associated with feelings of well-being and relaxation, precisely the mental state conducive to sleep. What begins as a philosophical exercise becomes a biological pathway to rest. Epictetus advised his students to remind yourself that what you love is mortal. Far from being depressing, this remembrance heightens our appreciation for what we have in this moment, creating a sense of fullness rather than lack as we drift toward sleep. By contemplating the impermanence of all things, we're less likely to take them for granted and more likely to find peace in their present reality. As you practice negative visualization tonight, remember its dual purpose: to prepare you mentally for potential challenges, reducing their power to disturb your peace, and to deepen your appreciation for the good that already exists in your life. This balanced perspective, clear-eyed about difficulties, yet grateful for blessings, creates the mental conditions where sleep can naturally arise. Chapter 3. Finding Peace in the Present Moment. Our third Stoic practice focuses on finding peace by anchoring yourself firmly in the present moment. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." This simple instruction contains profound wisdom for those seeking sleep. Anxiety rarely exists in the present moment. Instead, it projects us forward into an imagined future or pulls us backward into a remembered past. Yet sleep can only happen in the now, this breath, this heartbeat, this moment of being. Think about the last time you found yourself wide awake at 2 a.m. Where was your mind? Perhaps replaying an awkward interaction from earlier in the day, analyzing what you should have said differently. Or maybe projecting forward to tomorrow's challenges, mentally rehearsing conversations yet to happen, or worrying about outcomes you cannot predict. In either case, your consciousness was anywhere but in the present moment, the only place where sleep is possible. The Stoics understood that the present moment is our only true point of power. The past exists only in memory, the future only in imagination, but the present is where we actually live and where peace can be found. This insight is particularly valuable as we prepare for sleep, when the mind's tendency to time travel is often at its strongest. Marcus Aurelius elaborated on this principle. Do not disturb yourself by picturing your life as a whole. Do not assemble in your mind the many and varied troubles which have come to you in the past and will come again in the future, but ask yourself with regard to every present difficulty, What is there in this that is unbearable and beyond endurance? This practice of narrowing our focus to the immediate present relieves the mind of unnecessary burdens. The emperor wrote these words not as abstract philosophy, but as practical guidance for himself, often at night, by lamplight, after long days managing the affairs of the Roman Empire. If a man responsible for the welfare of millions could find peace in the present moment, despite his enormous responsibilities, perhaps we too can release our comparatively smaller concerns as we prepare for sleep. As you prepare for sleep, notice how your mind might be time traveling, replaying conversations from earlier today, planning tomorrow's activities, or perhaps wandering into scenarios that may never occur. Gently, without judgment, bring your attention back to the present moment. This gentle redirection is key. Many of us make the mistake of becoming frustrated with our wandering minds, creating a secondary layer of tension as we criticize ourselves for not being able to shut off our thoughts. The Stoics would advise a more compassionate approach, acknowledging the mind's natural tendency to wander and patiently guiding it back to the present without self-recrimination. Feel the weight of your body against the bed. Notice the texture of the sheets against your skin. Listen to the sound of your breathing or the ambient noises around you. These sensory anchors help return your consciousness to the only moment that truly exists. Now. The Roman philosopher Seneca observed, "Two elements must be rooted out once for all, the fear of future suffering and the recollection of past suffering, since the latter no longer concerns me, and the former concerns me not yet." This insight is particularly relevant as we prepare for sleep, when both past regrets and future anxieties tend to surface with particular intensity. Seneca himself was no stranger to life's difficulties. Exiled from Rome, later recalled to tutor the young Emperor Nero, and eventually forced to commit suicide at Nero's command, he faced extreme circumstances that would keep most of us awake with worry. Yet his writings reveal a man who found tranquility through present moment awareness, regardless of external conditions. The Stoics practiced this present moment awareness not as a special meditation technique, but as a fundamental orientation to life. They understood that our power to choose our response exists only in the present. As Epictetus taught, make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. This practice has physiological benefits that the Stoics intuited but couldn't scientifically explain. When we focus on immediate sensory experience, the feeling of breath, the weight of the body, we activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which governs rest and digestion. This counteracts the sympathetic fight or flight response that anxiety triggers, creating the biological conditions necessary for sleep. Modern neuroscience confirms what the Stoics understood intuitively. Present moment awareness actually changes our brain activity, shifting from the beta waves of active thinking to the alpha waves associated with relaxation, and eventually to the theta and delta waves of deep sleep. What begins as a philosophical practice becomes a neurological pathway to rest. Consider this story. A student came to the Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus, complaining of insomnia caused by worries about the future. Musonius asked, "Can you do anything about these concerns right now, as you lie in bed?" The student admitted he could not. "Then," Musonius replied, "you are suffering twice. once in your inability to sleep, and again in worrying about matters that must wait until tomorrow. Why not set aside what cannot be addressed now and give yourself permission to rest? This simple yet profound insight cuts to the heart of insomnia. Much of our sleeplessness comes not from genuine urgency, but from the mind's habit of treating all concerns as if they require immediate attention. The Stoic approach helps us discern between what needs our attention now and what can wait until tomorrow, creating the mental space where sleep can naturally arise. The Stoics recognize that the mind's tendency to wander from the present is natural but not inevitable. They developed practices to strengthen present moment awareness, just as we might strengthen a muscle through regular exercise. Marcus Aurelius advised himself, "Concentrate every minute on doing what's in front of you, with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, with justice." This same concentrated attention can be applied to the act of preparing for sleep. One practical technique is to focus on your breath, not controlling it, but simply observing its natural rhythm. Notice the sensation of air entering your nostrils, filling your lungs, and then leaving your body. When your mind wanders, as it inevitably will, gently return your attention to the breath. This practice, compatible with Stoic principles, has been shown to reduce the time it takes to fall asleep and improve sleep quality. The breath serves as an ideal anchor for present moment awareness because it is always with us, always happening now. Unlike thoughts that can transport us to past or future, the breath can only be experienced in the present. The Stoics understood this connection between breath and presence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Receive the gifts of fortune without pride, and part with them without reluctance." Like the breath, which, as you draw it in and give it back, neither belongs to you now, nor will belong to you hereafter. Another approach is to practice a body scan, systematically bringing awareness to each part of your body, from toes to head, noticing sensations without judgment. This not only anchors you in present moment physical experience, but also releases muscular tension. You might not have realized you were holding tension that can interfere with sleep. Begin with your toes, noticing any sensations present: warmth, coolness, tingling, pressure. Then move to your feet, ankles, calves, and so on, gradually bringing awareness to each part of your body. This practice not only keeps your attention in the present, but also creates a gentle wave of relaxation that moves through your entire system, preparing it for sleep. This wisdom applies perfectly to our modern sleep struggles. When thoughts of work, relationships, or responsibilities arise as you're trying to sleep, ask yourself, can I take meaningful action on this right now? If the answer is no, practice saying to yourself, I release this until tomorrow, when I can actually address it. This mental note creates a clear boundary between today and tomorrow. Many insomniacs suffer from what sleep researchers call cognitive arousal, the mind's tendency to remain active and engaged with problems that cannot be solved in the moment. By consciously deferring these concerns to a time when you can actually address them, you give your mind permission to rest. Epictetus taught, remember that you are an actor in a play, which is as the playwright wants it to be. For this is your duty, to act well the part that is given to you. But to select the part belongs to another. At night, your role is not problem solver or worrier, but simply one who rests, By accepting this role fully, you align yourself with the natural rhythm of life. This acceptance of your current role as one who rests can be profoundly liberating. So many of us resist sleep because we feel there is more to do, more to solve, more to plan. The Stoic wisdom reminds us that there is a time for action and a time for rest, and wisdom lies in honoring both. By repeatedly bringing your attention back to the present moment, the feeling of your breath, the comfort of your bed, the darkness behind your eyelids, you create the conditions where sleep can naturally arise. The present moment becomes a sanctuary from the mental time travel that keeps so many of us awake. As you practice this present moment awareness tonight, remember that you're not trying to force sleep to come. Paradoxically, the effort to make yourself sleep often creates the very tension that prevents it. Instead, you're simply creating the conditions where sleep can naturally arise, like preparing fertile soil and then allowing the seed to germinate in its own time. This patient, present-centered approach embodies the Stoic wisdom that brings peace not just to our nights, but to our days as well. Chapter 4. Separating Perception from Reality. Our fourth Stoic practice for calming the mind before sleep involves distinguishing between events themselves and our judgments about those events. This separation of perception from reality lies at the heart of Stoic psychology and offers profound relief from the mental agitation that often prevents sleep. Epictetus expressed this principle clearly. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. The Stoics recognize that we often suffer not from events themselves, but from the opinions we form about these events. This insight, though simple to state, can be revolutionary when applied to our nightly thought patterns. This wisdom is captured in Epictetus's famous handbook, the Enchiridion, where he writes, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." This principle, that our distress comes not from reality, but from our judgments about reality, offers a powerful tool for addressing the racing thoughts that often prevent sleep. Consider how this plays out in everyday life. Two people experience the same event: a canceled flight, a critical comment from a supervisor, an unexpected expense. Yet they respond entirely differently. One person becomes agitated, angry, or anxious, while the other remains calm and composed. The difference lies not in the event itself, but in the meaning each person assigns to it. As you lie in bed reviewing your day, notice how many of your lingering frustrations or anxieties stem not from what actually happened, but from the meaning you've assigned to those happenings. That critical comment from a colleague, the unexpected bill, the change of plans, these are neutral events until our minds label them as bad, unfair, or problematic. The nighttime hours often amplify these interpretations. In the darkness, with fewer distractions, our minds can elaborate on perceived slights or worries, building elaborate narratives far removed from the simple facts of what occurred. This mental elaboration creates emotional arousal that is antithetical to sleep. The Stoics taught that we can find freedom by recognizing that these judgments are additions we make to reality, not reality itself. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this, you have the power to revoke at any moment. This revocation of judgment, this ability to separate fact from interpretation, is not merely a philosophical exercise, but a practical skill that can transform your relationship with sleep. When we release our rigid interpretations of the day's events, we often find that the emotional charge that kept us awake dissolves naturally. Consider how this principle played out in the life of Epictetus himself. Born into slavery and later crippled, he had ample opportunity to view his circumstances as tragic. Yet he chose to interpret his situation differently, focusing on what remained within his control, his judgments, values, and inner responses. This shift in perception allowed him to achieve tranquility despite external conditions that many would find unbearable. If Epictetus could find peace amid slavery and disability, perhaps we too can find peace amid our comparatively minor challenges. His example reminds us that freedom begins not with changing our circumstances, but with changing our relationship to them, a principle particularly relevant as we lie in bed, unable to actively change our external situation until morning. The Stoics developed specific practices to help separate perception from reality. One technique involved deliberately using objective, non-judgmental language to describe events. Instead of saying, "That terrible driver cut me off," they might say, "A car moved in front of mine." This linguistic shift helps strip away the automatic judgments that trigger emotional reactions. This practice of objective description is especially valuable at bedtime, when we describe situations in neutral, factual terms. We often discover that much of our distress comes from the evaluative language we've been using in our internal dialogue. By shifting to more objective language, we can reduce the emotional charge that keeps sleep at bay. Tonight, practice identifying one situation from your day that left you feeling upset or anxious. Now, try to separate the bare facts of what happened from your interpretation of what happened. For example, the bare fact might be, "My boss asked me to revise the report." Your interpretation might be, "My boss thinks my work isn't good enough," or "I'll never get that promotion now." Can you see how the interpretation adds layers of meaning that may or may not be true? The event itself is neutral. Your mind created the story that generated your emotional response. This recognition that you are the author of your interpretations contains within it the seed of freedom. If you created the interpretation, you also have the power to create a different one, or to hold interpretations more lightly. Marcus Aurelius practiced this separation regularly, writing, "Our life is what our thoughts make it." He understood that the same external circumstances could produce suffering or serenity, depending entirely on how they were perceived. As you prepare for sleep, this insight offers a powerful way to release the mental tension created by rigid interpretations of the day's events. The emperor faced enormous pressures, wars, plagues, political intrigue, family tragedies. Yet his writings reveal a man who maintained inner peace by continually separating events from his judgments about them. Each night, as he prepared for sleep, he would review the day's events with this principle in mind, releasing the interpretations that might otherwise have kept him awake with worry. This doesn't mean dismissing your feelings or pretending negative events don't affect you. Rather, it's about recognizing the power of your perceptions and reclaiming your ability to question them. Perhaps your boss simply wants the report to address additional points you weren't aware of. Perhaps the revision request has nothing to do with your competence. The Stoics were not advocating for toxic positivity or denial of genuine challenges. They were suggesting a middle path, acknowledging reality while recognizing the subjective nature of our interpretations. This balanced approach allows us to respond wisely to life's challenges without being overwhelmed by them, especially as we prepare for sleep. Modern cognitive psychology echoes this ancient wisdom in techniques like cognitive restructuring, which helps people identify and challenge distorted thinking patterns. What the Stoics intuited through philosophical reflection, science has confirmed through empirical research. Our interpretations, not external events, primarily determine our emotional states. Cognitive distortions like catastrophizing, this is a complete disaster. Mind reading, they must think I'm incompetent. Or overgeneralizing, I always mess things up, are modern terms for the misinterpretations the Stoics warned against. By learning to recognize and question these patterns, we can reduce the emotional arousal that interferes with sleep. The practice of separating perception from reality becomes particularly valuable at bedtime, when the mind often replays the day's events with added layers of interpretation. These interpretations, if left unexamined, can create a cascade of emotions that keep sleep at bay. By questioning your automatic judgments, you interrupt this cascade before it gains momentum. Try this exercise as you prepare for sleep. For each situation that comes to mind, ask yourself, what are the objective facts here, separate from my interpretation? Then ask, what other interpretations might be equally or more valid? This simple practice often reveals how many of our facts are actually interpretations in disguise. For example, if you're ruminating on a colleague not acknowledging your greeting earlier in the day, the fact might be, when I said hello, they didn't respond. Your interpretation might be, they're angry with me, or they don't respect me. But alternative interpretations could include, they didn't hear me. They were preoccupied with something urgent, or they were having a difficult day that had nothing to do with me. By generating multiple interpretations, you loosen the grip of any single narrative, creating the mental flexibility that allows for peaceful sleep. This practice doesn't require you to determine which interpretation is correct. Often we can't know for certain, but rather to recognize that multiple perspectives are possible. By separating facts from interpretations as you review your day, you create mental space, a gap between event and reaction, where wisdom can enter. This practice allows you to release the grip of rigid judgments that might otherwise keep you awake. Seneca advised, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. As you prepare for sleep, notice how many of your concerns exist primarily in interpretation rather than in the objective circumstances of your life. By gently questioning these interpretations, you may find that many of your nighttime worries begin to dissolve. This dissolution of worry isn't merely psychological comfort. It creates the physiological conditions necessary for sleep. When we release rigid interpretations, the body's stress response diminishes, heart rate slows, muscle tension decreases, and the nervous system shifts from arousal to relaxation. What begins as a philosophical practice becomes a biological pathway to rest. Remember, The goal isn't to arrive at a positive interpretation of every event, but rather to recognize the subjective nature of all interpretations. This recognition itself creates freedom, the freedom to hold your perceptions lightly, rather than being held captive by them as you transition toward sleep. As you practice this separation of perception from reality tonight, you're not just preparing for better sleep, you're cultivating a skill that will serve you throughout your waking hours as well. The ability to distinguish between events and your judgments about them is a cornerstone of emotional resilience, allowing you to navigate life's challenges with greater wisdom and equanimity, both at night and during the day. Chapter 5. Cultivating Inner Tranquility. Our fifth Stoic practice focuses on cultivating inner tranquility, what the Stoics called apatheia, not apathy as we understand it today, but a state of mind free from disturbing emotions. This state of tranquil awareness was considered by the Stoics to be the foundation of a good life and, by extension, of restful sleep. The word apatheia might sound similar to our modern apathy, but the concepts are worlds apart. While apathy suggests indifference or lack of feeling, Stoic apatheia represents freedom from emotional disturbance, a calm, clear state of mind that allows us to respond to life with wisdom rather than reactivity. It's not the absence of feeling, but the mastery of our relationship to our feelings. The Stoics believe that tranquility comes not from controlling external circumstances, but from mastering our internal responses. As Seneca wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." This wisdom applies equally to the restless thoughts that can delay sleep. By creating a pause between stimulus and response, we reclaim our power to choose how we engage with our mental experience, the space between thought and response. When agitating thoughts arise as you're trying to rest, the Stoic approach isn't to suppress them forcefully, but to create a pause, a space between the thought and your reaction to it. In this space lies your freedom to choose a response that serves your well-being. This practice is particularly valuable at bedtime, when the mind often becomes a theater for replaying the day's events or rehearsing tomorrow's challenges. Without the distractions of daytime activities, these thoughts can seem especially loud and persistent. The Stoic practice of creating space helps us avoid becoming entangled in mental content that disrupts sleep. Epictetus taught his students, "Make it your study, then, to confront every harsh impression with the words, 'You are but an impression, and not at all what you seem to be.'" This simple recognition that thoughts are impressions, not reality itself, creates the crucial space that allows us to relate to our thoughts differently. The doorkeeper of the mind. Imagine your thoughts as guests knocking at the door of your consciousness. You don't need to invite every thought in for an extended stay. Some thoughts can be acknowledged and then gently turned away with the message, "Not tonight, thank you. I'm preparing for rest now." Marcus Aurelius used a similar metaphor, advising himself to be a doorkeeper of the mind, carefully selecting which impressions to admit and which to turn away. This doesn't mean forcefully suppressing thoughts, an effort that often backfires, but rather choosing not to engage with thoughts that don't serve your present purpose of preparing for sleep. Consider how you might practice this doorkeeper role tonight. When a worry about tomorrow's meeting knocks, You might acknowledge it briefly. Yes, I see you're concerned about the presentation. We can address this in the morning when we're fresh. For now, we're preparing for rest. This respectful but firm boundary setting helps train the mind to distinguish between productive planning and unproductive rumination, the garden of tranquility. The Stoics practiced this mental discipline throughout their days, not just at bedtime. They understood that inner tranquility requires regular attention, like tending a garden. Each time you notice an agitating thought and choose not to engage with it, you're strengthening your capacity for mental peace. This gardening metaphor is particularly apt. Just as a garden requires daily attention, weeding, watering, pruning, so too does the mind. We cannot expect to cultivate tranquility only when we're trying to sleep if we've allowed mental weeds to proliferate throughout the day. The Stoics practiced mental discipline as an ongoing commitment. Seneca advised, "The mind should be kept under control so that it comes to rest ready for sleep, not collapsing into it worn out from exhaustion." This suggests that preparing for tranquil sleep begins long before bedtime, with how we manage our thoughts throughout the day, the sky and the clouds. Consider this practice. As you lie in bed, imagine your mind as a clear blue sky. Thoughts, feelings, and sensations are like clouds passing through this sky, sometimes dark and stormy, sometimes light and wispy, but never the sky itself. Your awareness is the sky, vast, open, and unchanged by whatever clouds pass through it. This powerful metaphor helps us recognize our fundamental nature as awareness itself, rather than the contents of awareness. No matter how turbulent the weather patterns of thought and emotion, the sky of awareness remains unharmed, unblemished. This recognition can be profoundly calming, especially when sleep seems elusive due to mental activity. When you notice yourself becoming entangled in thoughts about work problems, relationship concerns, or other sleep-disrupting topics, remind yourself, I am not these thoughts. I am the awareness watching these thoughts. This simple shift in perspective can create immediate relief from mental agitation. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who faced enormous pressures managing an empire, practiced a similar technique, writing, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." He recognized that we become what we repeatedly think about, and so he carefully chose which thoughts to entertain, especially before sleep, the practice of mental selection. Tonight, experiment with being selective about the thoughts you engage with. When you notice your mind wandering into territory that creates tension or anxiety, gently redirect it toward thoughts that cultivate tranquility, perhaps memories of peaceful places you visited, simple pleasures you've enjoyed, or moments of connection with loved ones. This redirection isn't about suppressing difficult thoughts, but about skillfully guiding the mind toward content that supports your current purpose, preparing for sleep. Just as you might choose calming music over stimulating music before bed, you can choose tranquil thoughts over agitating ones. The Stoics were practical psychologists who understood that what we focus on shapes our experience. Epictetus advised, "Don't let the force of an impression, when it first hits, knock you off your feet. Just say to it, 'Hold on a moment. Let me see who you are and what you represent. Let me put you to the test.'" This questioning stance toward our thoughts helps us avoid being swept away by them. Tranquility through acceptance. Another aspect of cultivating inner tranquility involves accepting what cannot be changed. Many of us lie awake, fighting against the fact that we're awake, creating a secondary layer of suffering on top of the primary experience. The Stoics would advise us to accept our current state, even sleeplessness, without adding judgment or resistance. Epictetus taught, "Do not seek to have events happen as you want them to, but instead want them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go well." Applied to sleep, this might mean acknowledging, at this moment, I am awake. This is the reality of my current experience. I can accept this moment as it is without struggling against it. Paradoxically, this acceptance often creates the conditions where sleep can naturally arise. This isn't about forcing positive thinking, but about recognizing your power to choose which thoughts deserve your attention as you prepare for sleep. As Epictetus taught, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. The physiological dimension of tranquility. The Stoics intuited what modern science has confirmed. Our thoughts directly affect our physiology. When we entertain agitating thoughts, our bodies respond with increased heart rate, muscle tension, and hormonal changes that prepare us for action. Precisely the opposite of what we need for sleep. By cultivating inner tranquility through Stoic practices, we create the physiological conditions conducive to sleep. The calm mind leads to a calm body, relaxed muscles, steady breathing, and the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system that governs rest and recovery. Tonight, as you practice cultivating inner tranquility, notice the physical sensations that accompany this mental state. The softening of your facial muscles, the deepening of your breath, the pleasant heaviness of your limbs. These bodily changes are the bridge between tranquil awareness and restful sleep. Chapter 6. Embracing Life's Natural Rhythms. Our sixth Stoic practice involves aligning ourselves with the natural rhythms of life, including the cycle of wakefulness and sleep. The Stoics viewed human beings as part of nature, not separate from it, and believed that harmony with natural processes leads to well-being. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "All things are connected with one another, and the bond is holy." This interconnectedness includes our relationship with the natural cycles of day and night, activity and rest, engagement and withdrawal. In our modern world, we often fight against these natural rhythms. We extend daylight with artificial lighting, stimulate our minds with screens long after sunset, and expect our bodies to switch instantly from high productivity to deep sleep. The Stoics would view this resistance to natural cycles as a form of hubris, an overestimation of our power to control nature. Tonight, consider how you might better align yourself with the natural rhythm of day transitioning to night. The hours before sleep are ideally a time of gradual unwinding, of allowing the body and mind to downshift from the day's activities. The Stoics practiced evening reflection as a regular ritual. Seneca described his nightly review. "When the light has been removed, and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit that's now mine, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." This wasn't a harsh self-judgment, but a compassionate review, noting what went well, what could be improved, and then consciously releasing the day. This practice creates closure, preventing the day's unfinished business from following you into sleep. You might create your own evening ritual of reflection, perhaps writing briefly in a journal, or simply mentally reviewing your day with questions like, what went well today? What did I learn? What would I do differently? What am I grateful for? After this reflection, consciously release the day with a phrase like, I have done what I could today. Now I release my concerns until tomorrow. This creates a psychological boundary between the active day and the restful night. The Stoics also recognized the value of preparing the physical environment for sleep. While they didn't have blue light filters or aromatherapy diffusers, they understood that our surroundings influence our mental state. Consider how you might create a sleep environment that signals to your body and mind that it's time for rest. Perhaps dimming lights, reducing noise, lowering the temperature, or introducing calming scents. By consciously aligning yourself with the natural transition from day to night, activity to rest, you work with your biology rather than against it. As Epictetus advised, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Chapter 7. Preparing the mind for renewal. Our seventh Stoic practice focuses on viewing sleep not merely as an absence of wakefulness, but as an active process of renewal and preparation. The Stoics understood that quality rest was essential for clear thinking and wise action. Seneca wrote, "The mind must be given relaxation. It will rise better and keener after resting." This insight, written nearly 2 millennia ago, aligns perfectly with modern neuroscience, which has revealed how critical sleep is for cognitive function, emotional regulation, and physical health. As you prepare for sleep tonight, consider shifting your perspective from seeing sleep as simply the end of today to viewing it as preparation for tomorrow. This subtle reframing can transform sleep from an interruption of productive time into a vital investment in your future well-being. The Stoics practiced a form of mental preparation before sleep that we might adapt for our modern lives. Marcus Aurelius would remind himself, "Soon you will have forgotten all things, and soon all things will have forgotten you." This memento mori, reminder of mortality, wasn't meant to be depressing, but liberating, putting daily concerns into perspective. Tonight, as you lie in bed, consider the broader context of your life, the project deadline, the awkward interaction, the financial concern. How significant will these appear a month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now? This perspective can help release the grip of immediate concerns that might otherwise keep you awake. The Stoics also practiced a form of mental rehearsal before sleep, visualizing themselves responding to tomorrow's challenges with wisdom and virtue. You might adapt this by briefly imagining yourself moving through tomorrow with calm presence, responding thoughtfully rather than reactively to whatever arises. Another Stoic practice involved contemplating the interconnectedness of all things. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Meditate often on the interconnectedness and mutual interdependence of all things in the universe." This cosmic perspective can be deeply calming, helping us recognize that we are part of something larger than our individual concerns. As you prepare for sleep, you might practice this broader awareness by imagining yourself as part of the vast tapestry of life, connected to all humanity, to the natural world, to the cosmos itself. This expansion of perspective often helps release the grip of personal worries. Finally, the Stoics emphasized gratitude as a pathway to tranquility. Epictetus advised, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." As sleep approaches, consider briefly reviewing what you're grateful for in this moment, from basic necessities like shelter and warmth, to the relationships that enrich your life. This practice of gratitude creates a sense of sufficiency and contentment that is conducive to peaceful sleep. Rather than focusing on what's lacking or what needs to be fixed tomorrow, you rest in an awareness of what is already good and complete. Chapter 8. Practicing Philosophical Detachment. Our 8th Stoic practice explores the concept of philosophical detachment, what the Stoics called apatheia, and what we might think of as emotional objectivity. This isn't about becoming cold or unfeeling, but rather developing a healthy distance from overwhelming emotions that can disrupt sleep. Epictetus taught, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." This principle applies perfectly to our emotional responses as we prepare for sleep. While we cannot directly command ourselves to feel or not feel certain emotions, we can practice observing them with philosophical detachment. As you lie in bed tonight, you might notice emotions arising, perhaps anxiety about tomorrow's challenges, frustration about today's setbacks, or excitement about future possibilities. The Stoic approach isn't to suppress these feelings, but to observe them with a certain distance, as if watching clouds pass across the sky. Marcus Aurelius advised himself, "When jarred, unavoidably by circumstances, revert at once to yourself, and don't lose the rhythm more than you can help. You'll have a better grasp of harmony if you keep going back to it." This practice of returning to your center, your observing self, can be particularly powerful when emotions threaten to overwhelm your evening peace. Consider this visualization. Imagine yourself sitting by a stream. Your thoughts and emotions are like leaves floating on the water's surface. You don't need to dive in after them or try to stop their flow. Simply observe them passing by, acknowledging their presence without becoming entangled in their current. The Stoics understood that our initial emotional reactions happen automatically, but our secondary responses, how we relate to those emotions, are within our control. Seneca wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." By observing your emotions with philosophical detachment, you can often see how your mind magnifies concerns beyond their actual significance. This practice is particularly valuable for those nights when strong emotions make sleep elusive. Perhaps you're feeling the sting of criticism, the weight of disappointment, or the grip of fear. Rather than fighting these feelings or being carried away by them, try acknowledging them with gentle awareness. "I notice I'm feeling anxious right now," or "there's anger present in this moment." This simple act of naming emotions while maintaining a slight distance can diminish their power. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. What seemed monstrous in the shadows often becomes manageable in the light of awareness. The Stoics also practiced what we might call emotional contextualization, placing feelings within the broader context of human experience. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. This wasn't pessimism but preparation, a way of contextualizing difficult emotions when they arose. As you prepare for sleep, you might adapt this practice by acknowledging that difficult emotions are simply part of the human experience, not failures or problems to be solved, but passing phenomena common to all people throughout history. This perspective can help release the secondary suffering that comes from believing we shouldn't feel certain ways. Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate emotions, but to develop a wise relationship with them, one that allows you to honor your feelings without being dominated by them as you transition toward sleep. Chapter 9. Embracing Cosmic Perspective. Our ninth and final Stoic practice involves expanding your perspective beyond personal concerns to embrace what the Stoics called the cosmic viewpoint. This shift in perspective can be profoundly calming as you prepare for sleep, offering perhaps the most powerful antidote to the narrowly personal worries that often keep us tossing and turning through the night. The cosmic perspective was not a peripheral concept in Stoic philosophy, but stood at its very center. The Stoics understood that many of our anxieties arise from seeing ourselves as isolated individuals, disconnected from the larger patterns and rhythms of existence. By expanding our perspective to include the vastness of the cosmos, we naturally loosen the grip of petty concerns and align ourselves with the greater whole of which we are part. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome and perhaps history's most powerful Stoic practitioner, wrote, "Constantly regard the universe as one living being having one substance and one soul." This wasn't mere poetic language, but a fundamental orientation that informed how he approached both the burdens of imperial rule and the quiet moments before sleep. If a man responsible for the welfare of the known world could find peace in cosmic perspective, perhaps we too can release our comparatively minor worries as we prepare for rest. The practice of expanding awareness. As you lie in bed tonight, practice expanding your awareness beyond the boundaries of your individual life. Begin with your immediate experience, the sensation of your body against the bed, the rhythm of your breath, the darkness behind your eyelids. Notice how even this simple awareness already transcends the mental chatter of worries and plans. From this foundation of present moment awareness, gradually extend your attention outward. Become aware of the room around you, its dimensions, temperature, the furniture it contains. Then expand further to include the entire building you're in, with all its rooms, and perhaps other people sleeping or going about their evening activities. Continue this expansion, bringing your awareness to your neighborhood with its many homes and the lives unfolding within them. Some people are celebrating tonight, others grieving, some are being born, others are dying. All are part of the same human community to which you belong. Extend further to your city or town the network of streets, the buildings, parks, and natural features. Imagine it from above, as if you were seeing it from the vantage point of a bird or a satellite. Notice how your individual concerns are now situated within this larger context, one small thread in a vast tapestry. Now expand your awareness to your country, with its diverse landscapes, cultures, and millions of other lives. Each person has their own worries tonight, their own hopes and fears, yet all are united by their common humanity. Your concerns, which seemed so pressing moments ago, are now revealed as variations on universal human themes that have existed throughout time. Continue expanding to the continent, to the entire planet Earth spinning in space. Imagine the blue marble of our world with its swirling clouds, vast oceans, and land masses. From this perspective, national boundaries disappear, and humanity appears as one species sharing a common home. Now let your mind extend even further to our solar system, with the sun at its center and the planets in their orbits. Earth is now just one small world among many, a pale blue dot in the vastness of space. The sun that will rise tomorrow morning has been rising for billions of years and will continue long after our brief lives have ended. Expand further still to our galaxy, the Milky Way, with its spiral arms containing hundreds of billions of stars, many with their own planets. Our entire solar system is but one tiny point of light in this vast cosmic whirlpool. And beyond our galaxy lie billions of other galaxies, each containing billions of stars stretching to the edge of the observable universe. From this expanded perspective, consider the relative significance of the concerns that may be keeping you awake. The project deadline, the interpersonal conflict, the financial worry. How do these appear when viewed against the backdrop of the cosmos? This isn't about dismissing your concerns as unimportant, but about placing them in a context that often naturally relaxes their grip on your attention. The wisdom of cosmic perspective. The Stoics believed that this cosmic perspective wasn't just a mental exercise, but a recognition of our true place in the universe as integral parts of a greater whole. This recognition brings with it a profound sense of belonging and purpose that transcends our individual struggles and concerns. Epictetus, who began life as a slave and ended it as one of history's most influential philosophers, taught, "You are a citizen of the universe and a part of it, not a subordinate part, but a principal part. You are capable of comprehending the divine governance of the world and of reflecting on its sequences. This understanding of ourselves as citizens of the cosmos, rather than merely citizens of a particular nation or members of a particular group, was revolutionary in the ancient world and remains so today." Seneca, advisor to emperors and one of Rome's wealthiest men, found that cosmic perspective liberated him from the tyranny of circumstance. He wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. From the cosmic perspective, change is not something to resist, but the very nature of existence. The challenges you face today, the worries about tomorrow, all are part of the ever-changing flow of the cosmos. By aligning yourself with this natural flow rather than resisting it, you create the conditions for peaceful surrender to sleep. Consider how often our sleep is disturbed by resistance to change. The promotion we didn't get, the relationship that ended, the plan that fell through. From the cosmic perspective, change is not a bug in the system, but a feature. Stars are born and die. Galaxies collide and merge. The universe itself is in constant flux. Our individual lives, with their inevitable changes and transitions, are perfectly aligned with this cosmic pattern. Stories and practices of cosmic perspective. Consider this story. A Stoic teacher once took his troubled student to a hilltop at night. The student had been consumed with anxiety about a workplace conflict, replaying conversations in his mind and imagining worst-case scenarios. Looking up at the vast expanse of stars, the teacher asked, "Do you think the cosmos is concerned about your promotion?" The student laughed, suddenly seeing his worries in a new light. "The stars have been shining for billions of years," the teacher continued, "and will shine for billions more. Countless humans before you have worried about their status, their conflicts, their place in the social hierarchy. All have passed away, their concerns forgotten, yet the cosmos continues its dance. Can you allow yourself the peace of this perspective as you rest tonight?" This story illustrates how cosmic perspective doesn't invalidate our human concerns, but rather places them in a context that allows us to hold them more lightly. The student's workplace conflict didn't disappear, but his relationship to it transformed, creating space for peace and eventually sleep. Another practice involves contemplating the vastness of cosmic time as well as space. As you lie in bed, consider that the atoms that make up your body were forged in the hearts of stars that exploded billions of years ago. The carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, and other elements essential to your existence are literally stardust, recycled through countless forms before temporarily coming together as you. Marcus Aurelius reflected on this temporal vastness. Consider the past, such great changes of political supremacies. The future, too, will be similar, for it cannot break from the pattern of the present and the past. Therefore, for a man's lifetime, 40 years is equal to eternity. What, then, is there to fear? This contemplation of cosmic time helps us recognize that our current worries, which seem so pressing in the darkness of night, are but momentary ripples in the vast ocean of existence. This recognition often brings with it a profound sense of peace, not because our concerns don't matter, but because we see them in their true proportion, cosmic connection, and universal goodwill. The cosmic perspective also reveals our fundamental connection to all humanity and indeed to all life. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "We are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth." From this perspective, the social frictions and interpersonal tensions that might disturb your peace are seen as temporary misalignments in a fundamentally interconnected system. This insight has practical applications for sleep. How often do interpersonal conflicts, an argument with a spouse, tension with a colleague, worry about a child, keep us awake at night? The cosmic perspective reminds us that beneath these surface conflicts lies a deeper unity. We are all part of the same human family, facing the same fundamental challenges of existence, seeking the same basic goods of safety, connection, and meaning. As sleep approaches, you might practice this sense of connection by extending goodwill to others, first to those you love, then to acquaintances, even to those with whom you have difficulty. This practice of universal goodwill, similar to the ancient concept of cosmopolitanism or world citizenship, can release the tensions of interpersonal conflict that sometimes keep us awake. Begin by bringing to mind someone you love deeply, a child, partner, or dear friend. Wish them well. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be at peace. Notice how this wish naturally arises from your care for them. Then extend this same wish to wider circles, to friends, to neutral acquaintances, and finally to those with whom you have difficulty. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be at peace. This practice recognizes our common humanity beneath the surface differences that often divide us. From the cosmic perspective, the boundaries between self and other begin to dissolve, revealing a deeper unity that transcends individual concerns. This recognition can be profoundly calming as you prepare for sleep. Mortality and meaning. Finally, the cosmic perspective reminds us of the brevity of our lives against the vast timescape of the universe. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Pass through this brief life as nature bids you, make your exit with grace." This remembrance of our mortality, far from being morbid, can clarify what truly matters as we prepare for sleep. Consider how many of our sleep-disturbing worries revolve around matters that, in the grand scheme of things, are relatively insignificant. A critical comment from a colleague, a minor financial setback, a social faux pas. When viewed through the lens of our mortality, these concerns often reveal themselves as unworthy of the precious time and energy we devote to them, especially the precious time we could be spending in restful sleep. The Stoics practiced regular contemplation of death, not to induce anxiety, but to enhance appreciation for life and to clarify priorities. Seneca wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day." The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time. As you prepare for sleep tonight, consider, if this were your last day, would the concerns currently keeping you awake still seem important? This question isn't meant to trivialize genuine challenges, but to help distinguish between essential matters and those that, from the perspective of a well-lived life, might not deserve the attention we give them. The paradox of cosmic perspective. Tonight, as you rest your head on your pillow, allow yourself to feel both your insignificance and your significance in the cosmic order, a paradox the Stoics embraced. You're but a brief flicker in cosmic time, a tiny speck in cosmic space. Yet, you're also an integral part of the universe becoming conscious of itself. Your capacity to contemplate the cosmos, to wonder at its vastness and beauty, to seek meaning in your place within it, this is itself a marvel of cosmic evolution. This paradoxical perspective, feeling simultaneously small and significant, creates a unique kind of peace. Your individual worries loosen their grip as you recognize their relative insignificance in the cosmic scheme. Yet your life takes on deeper meaning as you recognize your connection to the whole. This balanced view creates the mental and emotional conditions conducive to deep, restful sleep. The practice of cosmic perspective is not about escaping reality, but about seeing it more clearly and completely. It's about recognizing that the universe is vastly larger, older, and more complex than our everyday concerns suggest, and that we are integral parts of this magnificent whole. From this expanded perspective, many of our daily worries naturally loosen their hold, creating space for the deep peace that welcomes sleep. As the boundaries of your awareness expand tonight, from your body to your room to your city to the planet to the cosmos itself, allow yourself to rest in this expanded state. Feel yourself held in the vast embrace of existence, supported by the same forces that sustain the stars. From this cosmic perspective, Sleep is not an interruption of life, but a participation in its rhythms, as natural as the turning of the earth, as ancient as the universe itself. Let this be your final thought as consciousness gives way to sleep. You are home in the cosmos, exactly where you belong, part of a magnificent whole that continues its dance whether you worry or rest. Choose rest and align yourself with the deep peace that has always been your birthright as a citizen of the cosmos.